Hello. Forgot to add us to the screen then, James. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. And this is Lads, it's Tottenham. My name is John. I'm coming to you from the South Coast. It's a two-hander tonight, and also coming from the South Coast. That way. The camera's backwards. Is the other Jay Williams. It's James, my son. How are you, James?
Yeah, I'm alright. Just got back, got home, went bowling, bowled a 92, then a 70. So not very good. I'm terrible at bowling, but I'm feeling good. Uni, bowling, talking about Spurs. Name a better day.
And what happened on the bus, James?
Oh, I fell asleep. I like to have a little nap on the bus. So I set an alarm and then I close my eyes and then I wake up and see that there's a missed phone call from you because obviously you're going, you should, where are you, sort of thing. But it's fine. I'm here.
Well, at least you set the alarm. So you
planned. I always set an alarm. No, well, to be truthful, I was once on a train to Southampton and I woke up nearly in Cardiff. So because I didn't set an alarm. So learnt my lesson.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, wonderful. Indeed. So welcome to the stream, everyone. There's 13 of you watching who aren't obviously watching Brentford Leicester, the riveting game. I suspect this is why HG bailed on me today because he's a bit of a his grandmother was a Brentford fan, so it's like one of his closet teams. He's obviously got Frankfurt, who we might talk about later as well as one of his teams. And Kerry's calling you out here, James. Always so tired. I think the beer might add to it, Kerry. I'm not going to lie. I think that's got an effect on it, probably.
Maybe. I like my beauty sleep. So what can I say?
Well, okay. I mean, you're a miniature big version of me, so you shouldn't need your beauty sleep, clearly. And Kerry is multitasking, indeed. If you are watching, give us a comment. Give us a like, subscribe. If you're watching afterwards, give us a little comment. Give us your views. We want to know. We want to hear what you think about the Europa draw. We're going to talk about Ipswich on Sunday, which if we hadn't won these last two games, could have been a relegation fight. Let's face it. Fortunately, I think we're just about safe from this now. But give us your comments. Give us questions if you've got anything, and we will just get on with the show. So obviously, I've got the wrong slide up for a start. So while I prepare this, here we go. James, the Europa League draw happened at lunchtime today.
Indeed.
I was riveted on YouTube by the 4 hours of preamble that UEFA love to have for no reason at all before they eventually did this rather bizarre draw where they decided which half of the draw we'd be in and who you're playing. You already vaguely knew who you're playing because it was one of two teams, and Manchester United were going to get the opposite team because we finished next to each other in the group stage, and then they had to decide who was home and away in the quarterfinals, who was home and away in the semi-finals, and so on. I don't know if they did the draw for who gets the home dressing room in the final or not. I lost interest. I'm not going to lie. Good evening, Phil Ambrose, one of the Cheese Room Patreons. Obviously, we aren't the Cheese Room anymore, but we're still part of the Cheese Room Happy family. I might be on the pod tomorrow, Phil, possibly. I think I might be jumping into that one. Let's see how the result goes, maybe. What happened? So there was a bit of a technical issue. It didn't go offline when it was supposed to, and maybe some stuff that Dave and Gibbo were discussing shouldn't be publicly aired. I think it was safer. Gibbo decided to take it offline. Nothing to do with us or anything, just what they were discussing. I think they decided best it wasn't kept out on YouTube, just to be honest about it. So that's why Gibbo deleted it. So sorry about that. They will be back, and hopefully I know Caller had a problem with the closing the show last week, so hopefully it's going to work tonight. If it doesn't, we're going to have to do something. Don't even ask, Kerry. Seriously. Let's talk about the road to Bilbao. So we have been drawn against RZ. Now, from my understanding, James, you shouldn't say RZ, AZ, Alkmaar, because the A in AZ stands for Alkmaar. So it should just be AZ.
So it's Alkmaar Z.
Yeah, I think so. That's my understanding. Yes, I'm sure it was HG that told me that because obviously HG used to live in the Netherlands, so he knows his stuff, as we know about his European football anyway. But yeah, so that's what. But as we know, Troy Parrott plays for them, and they've got a couple of sons of former Dutch internationals whose names are completely escaping me, including a midfielder who was linked with Spurs in the early 2000s. We beat them 1-0 in the group stage. It was a bit of a scraping past 1-0 as well. But Mikey Moore had that. That was when Mikey Moore had his sort of 20 minutes where he absolutely destroyed them. Started on the right wing, got moved to the left in the second half, and he just didn't. Madders describe him as Neymar. That's when
Yeah.
Manders described him as Neymar in the post-match interview. But so we'd expect to get past them, wouldn't we?
Oh, yeah, certainly. The only thing I will say is obviously any team who can get out of the league phase of European competition is pretty decent, right? And you have to go away, and playing away in Europe is always difficult against decent competition. So, it's certainly not going to be easy. And I don't think the style of football we play lends itself particularly well to knockout football. So it's really going to be dependent on how well we show up at home. I think for the rest of this, sort of phase, I'm a little skeptical of how we can do away, but I'm quite confident about us at home. So I think we need to win our home games quite convincingly, because I am a little worried about us away, especially because, teams and managers adapt based on what they've seen, and it's not that difficult to adapt to what we're doing. The only silver lining I would say is, well, maybe they haven't seen that much of us so far, so maybe we can kind of get away with it over 2 legs, as opposed to a full Premier League season. But yeah, that game should be somewhat easier than I think Frankfurt will be. But hey, cross that bridge.
Yeah, I mean, HG's very upset because, again, as I mentioned a minute ago, Frankfurt is one of HG's teams. That's his German team. Yeah, he seems to have a team in each country. Multifaceted, our HG. So obviously Frankfurt have lost Mamouche, and they're not the team they were a couple of seasons ago, certainly. So it'll be interesting. Ajax got through by the skin of their teeth last night, I think, didn't they? It's very tight, but I would fancy us, unless we pick up more injuries again, which isn't beyond the realms that could happen. I fancy to get that far. The real one for me, looking at it, is Lazio. Lazio will be a tough game in the semi-final, and then looking at the other side, James, who do you fancy out of those 8 teams on the orange on the right?
I mean, honestly, it's Bilbao, probably. Athletic Club, Bilbao. They're probably one of the favourites. I highly suspect Bilbao Rangers semi-final. But then Fenerbahce have Mourinho, and yes, whatever about Mourinho, but he's good at knockout competitions. Other than that, you're looking at United, who, yes, they are terrible, but they still do have world-class players. So, can't count them out. Lyon. Yeah, I think it's really just good. It wouldn't surprise me if Rangers got through it all, actually. Solely because I think they're probably the hardest team to beat away. Like, obviously, we played them up at the Ibrox, and they are a hard team to play away. And, I mean, yeah, that's probably what I predict. Either them or United.
I have to say, Roma Athletic Bilbao is quite a big game in this. I think Roma, obviously, since Ranieri's gone there, they look really good against us at Tottenham. Athletic Bilbao, all over the years, have always been a tough team to travel to Spain to play them. So I think that could be a really dicey one. Obviously, United at the moment are a bit in the doldrums, but Amorim, might start working his magic. He'll get some players back soon. He has completely changed the system. So this is probably the weakest they're going to be for a while, I imagine. And once he gets the players in, maybe in the summer, I think you're going to see a better United next season. Sociedad will not be, they're not doing brilliantly in the Liga this season. Won't be easy. Lyon have lost players. They had to sell players to comply with the financial rules. So it's interesting on both sides. Even Bodø Glimt last night had quite a dramatic win in extra time. I think they scored in added time, didn't they, to take it to extra time, and then won it in the extra time. You can never really write off the likes of Olympiacos, because you never know, at home they could score 3 or 4.
Every away game in Europe is difficult. Even if it's a bunch of, semi-professional farmers, if you're going to the middle of nowhere in Greece and there's 30,000 Greeks shouting very loudly, that's a difficult game, right? Regardless of who you're playing against, that's still going to be difficult for you to play against. So you can't really write anyone off in Europe, I don't think. I mean, even Fenerbahce, who don't have fantastic players, they still definitely pose a threat. I'm surprised Besiktas didn't go through. Anywho, I mean, you're looking at a possible quarter-final of Tottenham Ajax. That was a Champions League semi-final only a few years ago, and now it's the Europa League quarter-final. That's kind of crazy to think about.
There you go. Davo's answering the question. We've had to delete it due to technical issues.
I
didn't realise they were still live on YouTube, basically, after they ended the show.
But I mean, I don't remember Bodo Glimt. I remember them beating Roma when Mourinho was Roma manager only a few years ago. I think in the Conference League. In the Conference League, maybe this season they won it. So like they're no slouches. So there's difficult games ahead, obviously. No matter who goes through.
Anyway, so what I want you to do in the chat, there's a whole 22 of you watching. Thank you very much for watching. We will tell you all about it, David. I want you to put how far you think Tottenham are going to get in the Europa League. So you can put R16 for round 16, QF for quarterfinal, SF for semi-final, final, or even W for win. Just give me those two letters. Or R16 would be a letter and two numbers. I know that before Davo tells me, because he probably will. Let me know how far you think we're going to get, and if we're not going to win, who's going to win? Assuming I'm going to assume most of you think we're going to get past RZ Alkmaar. So yeah, please do fill in the chat. Let us know what you think, and then we'll come back to that. So it was quite enjoyable, James, to see the Arsenal fans rejoicing they've got PSV, only to find out they're going to get either Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid in the next round. I did enjoy that.
I think the fact that we have won more European trophies than them will be safe for another season. I can't see them getting past Madrid. Actually, you never know. PSV played really well against Juventus, so I can see PSV beating them. I mean, Juventus play the same kind of football as Arsenal do, which is terrible, stodgy, Tony Pulis football. So, never know.
And what a finish from Ivan Perisic. Maybe we should have looked to have signed that fella. He didn't look too bad, did he?
He was involved in two of the goals as well. I think PSV's second or their winner. He didn't give the assist, but very much he created that goal.
So was he playing on the right? Because he scored the goal on the right. I saw that.
He was playing on the right, I think. Doesn't look like a 36-year-old, 35-year-old, however old he is. He looks like a pretty young fella. No, and he's still got more technical ability than...
I mean, it's a shame, isn't it? Because Ange was using him as a super sub until he got his injury. So it is a real shame that it didn't work out, and we let him go on a free so he could, go back with a bad injury. And now it looks like he's doing well.
I thought he was going to Croatia at first.
Yeah. He went to Hajduk Split last January, and then in the summer moved to PSV.
So in my head, okay, you're going back to Croatia, you're Croatian, you're winding it down. Goes to PSV, and he's playing fantastically against Juventus. I mean,
scored home away, didn't he?
I don't know. Maybe this guy's still pretty good. I'm not quite sure why we let him go. I mean, he's probably...
I think because he was on a lot of money, James. He was on big wages, and they want to free up the wages to bring in the mighty Timo Werner.
Timo Werner and Brennan Johnson.
Good morning, Milton, down under. You're going to say semi-final, and the winner is Real Sociedad. And then Stephen, hoping for a win. Last time we beat Ipswich. Yeah, I'm going to get on to that in a minute, Stephen. It's been a while since we beat Ipswich, indeed. So, yeah, keep going. Get your predictions coming in the chat, and we'll move on to the Ipswich. I'm just going to put up the fixtures. I quickly, you probably tell I did this very quickly on the spreadsheet. So we've got Ipswich Saturday. Then we play City on Wednesday. Davo and Gibbo, with a special guest, will be here on Tuesday with grumpy old Spurs to talk about the Ipswich game and also look forward to the Manchester City visit. Then we've got a little bit of a break, James, because we're not in we're not in the FA Cup. So we've actually got an 8-day break before our trip to the Netherlands and to Alkmaar.
I said to you a couple hours ago, it's weird Spurs not playing midweek. It's really weird because I've just been so used to Spurs playing every 3 days, and now we're not. Now the players actually have a chance to rest. Which is, weird, but it's good at the same time. Look, fundamentally, we're getting nowhere in the league. I don't think we're in a relegation fight, but I think more than anything, we need to be trying to rest players for Europe and just go 100% on Europe. If that means the under-21s playing a Premier League game, give them a go, mate. I'm fine with that. looking at that, okay, Ipswich away, tricky game, but again, on paper, we've had a week's rest. We should be able to win comfortably. City at home, we always seem to get a result against City. Like, we just always seem to get a result against City. So I can fully see us getting a draw there. And then, we got what? That's about a week because it's February. So
8 days. 8 days.
Yeah, 8
so there's no
days.
reason you can't go full strength in Alkmaar.
Yeah, exactly. And then a couple of days later, okay, you got Bournemouth at home. But honestly, I would play full strength for Alkmaar and then I would rotate for Bournemouth. Because I would say the Bournemouth game is way less important than playing away to Alkmaar, personally. Even if I played the under-21s against Bournemouth.
Yeah, well, I don't think we need to necessarily. I think we can play strong at Alkmaar, hopefully get a good result, get a positive result, so it takes the pressure off the home leg. And might need to make 1 or 2 changes against Bournemouth, but they're it's not like we're playing 2 games a week all the time. Right? They've had a few weeks of that's calmed down, so they shouldn't be at that full exhaustion. And Kerry's asked in the chat when Solanke back. I think Solanke and Richarlison are going to be due back in around that Bournemouth time. Again, you can't throw them straight in. Tell hopefully will be getting his rhythm going in the games. Him and Odebear, that looked like a really exciting little combination in the 5 minutes they had on Sunday. Obviously, they've played together at French youth level and they knew each other. And Tell has said in his interview that Odebear played a part in him coming to the club as well. So I think it's positive signs there. Go on.
I think in particular, players like Son, who are obviously knackered, right? Yes, they can play, technically, but I think maybe that Bournemouth game is an example of a time where you just don't play them. You let them rest. Because I think we've had a habit as a club over the past few years of players who are fit, but tired, and overplaying them, causing the injuries. And I think maybe this is a time where we just kind of rest players who are near that threshold and perhaps give younger players a chance. Odebear, yeah, look good, promising. Give those younger players a sort of chance. The one silver lining of this season so far has been that Archie Gray, Bergvall, those guys, and Spence as well, have been afforded all these opportunities and all these minutes to sort of shine. So I think we should just be very, very cautious and treat the Europa League as the, main priority. And if that means throwing in a few of the younger guys like Moore or like the other fellow who scored for us in the Europa League, whose name I can't remember, so be it. I mean, if you can do it, yeah. If you can do it in Europe, you can do it in the Premier League, especially against Bournemouth.
I mean, let's be frank. Elfsborg were worse than Tamworth, weren't they? Let's be honest. They were not a good team.
They do.
So it's very hard to judge them. And they came to block the part of the bus big time. Well, that was their game plan.
Their top goal scorer so far in that season, he moved in January.
To Reading,
guess what?
Isn't it?
Plymouth.
Sorry, yes. And he hasn't scored for them, has he? I don't think.
So that does indicate their level. But,
yeah,
look, under 21 players, if they're good at that level, they can do a job stepping up if they have competent professionals around them. And, honestly, it doesn't really bother me if we draw 1-1 with Bournemouth. As long as we go through in Europe, I'm not that fussed. And just probably going to get the rest of the season. So, let's just try and win the Europa League and not get relegated.
Yeah. So just before I come to Kerry's question, I'll come back to it in a second. The fixture, obviously, we've got Fulham, then we've got the international break. The Fulham game is on the same day as the Carabao Cup final. So someone got confused because their calendar said we were playing Fulham this Wednesday. That was the reserve date if we got to the Carabao Cup final. That's why your calendar might have said that, which is again why Liverpool played Villa, because that game was due on the 16th or 15th or 16th of March. Then we come back from the international break, but it's FA Cup quarter-final round on the 29th and 30th of March. So we have no game. Again, when we come back from the international breaks, we've got the players will be back for a week or so. Then we play Chelsea away, obviously very rarely a good hunting ground for us. Straight into Southampton. And then we've got, if we progress in the Europa League, we've got Ajax or Frankfurt. Then we'll play Wolves on the Sunday. It's currently scheduled for the Saturday. Then we play return leg. And then again, Forest is currently scheduled for Saturday, the 19th of April. But I've put it in the Sunday because I'm hoping we'll get through. Then Liverpool. Then we go straight into the Europa semi-finals with West Ham in between. So it's a little bit non-stop. I'm just looking, the semi-finals on the 26th of April. So Liverpool are not in the FA Cup because they got knocked out by Plymouth, obviously. So that will definitely go ahead. But Aston Villa, I think the FA Cup final is the weekend we're supposed to play Aston Villa. So if Villa get to the final, that game will be rearranged. And the Europa League is just before the end of the Premier League. Go on.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The Europa League ending, having the Europa League final, and then a Premier League game seems a bit weird. It's always been in my mind that European tournaments end.
No, they normally, because I think the Conference League is probably the week after the 28th, and then the Champions League will be on the Saturday after that. But they've also got the FA Cup final before it as well, which has happened a few times now over the years.
I mean, can you imagine if we won the Europa League, right? And we're, I don't know, 12th or something. And it's like, all right, lads, you've got to go play Brighton at home right after winning the Europa League.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be a bit of the old Lord Mayor show, and there might be as it happens, a few years when Brighton got promoted to the Premier League, which I don't know, what's that, 7-8 years ago?
Quite a while ago,
someone I know worked at the club as a cheerleader, and because Brighton won the league, they got promoted really early, about 5 or 6 games before the end of the season.
They lost the league to Newcastle.
They lost the league because they basically went out and partied for 2 weeks. So they just fell apart in the last 4 games.
I remember in secondary school, I had a teacher who was a Brighton fan, and they lost the title to Newcastle, and he got quite upset with me because I raised my hand and said 2-1, 2-1. And he got very upset and angry with me about that comment, which valid, but also rattled by a 13-year-old. So funny. But yeah.
So it was 9 years ago then.
Yeah, wait, how old was I? It was before, it was like year 8 or year 9, so around to what?
Okay.
Anywho.
So will Scarlett get any more chances? Obviously, we've got Richarlison and Solanke, that's the word I'm looking for. Solanke both out injured still. James, Tell's going to be the number 9 for the time being.
Yeah.
I imagine Scarlett will get chances off the bench as and when needed. What do you think?
Yeah, he should. He certainly has shown he deserves more opportunities. And like I said, maybe a few weeks ago, a lot of the youth players, the younger lads my age basically, have shown a lot of desire and hard work. I do feel like they deserve more opportunities, especially in the league, because quite a lot of our league games are more or less a free hit. So giving these young players a bit of experience, those opportunities to bed themselves in, why not, sort of thing. Obviously, you have Tell, and it looks like Tell is not just on loan for 6 months because he's bought himself a brand new British registered Merc and he's buying a house, allegedly, I've read.
Right, okay.
So, who knows? But obviously, yeah, I mean, giving Scarlett a go, certainly. I suspect he'll have quite a lot of substitute appearances in Premier League games. I think it's just a case of how well we're doing in a lot of these games. If we're already 3-0 up, then Ange might throw him on for 30 minutes. If we're struggling, then it's a bit of a different conversation. It's perhaps not fair to throw on one of your younger players when you're down, is it? So.
Yeah, I mean, he came on against Brentford and I just finished that marathon I was doing. I had no signal for ages. Eventually managed to get some as I got on the train to come home. So I watched the last 20 minutes or so, and I thought he did all right. He held the ball up, he linked play. So I think he gave us options. And I do think, realistically, the way players need to get better is by playing games, which is why Jamie Donnelly's flying at the moment. He's getting game time against real adult men, footballers, and it's helping him improve. So, and I think this is what he really needs now to play. It hasn't worked on loan at Oxford. Pompey, he did all right, but not brilliant. And it didn't work at Ipswich for him because obviously Ipswich were flying high last season. So really for Dane, he needs to try and get a couple more goals for Spurs, because that's the key. I mean, I remember the end of last season, he came on against Luton or one of the many teams we were 1-0 down against, and we scored late on. And he literally had a tap in, but Brennan Johnson, surprise, got the cross wrong. All he had to do was lay it across the 6-yard box, and Dane had a tap in at the far post, but it didn't happen for him. Hopefully, he'll get some more chances. It was a really good. His movement for the goal against Elfsborg was excellent. So I'm hoping Dane does get some more chances. I have to admit, I'd written him off a little bit, but having seen the way he's played in the couple of games he's had, he was unlucky he couldn't play in the FA Cup because he was cup tied. but we will see. James, we are travelling to Portman Road on Sunday. Did you know the last time we played them at Portman Road was in 2002?
So this predates my existence on this earth.
It does predate your existence, yes, indeed.
Well, I mean, I may have been formed in some capacity, just not born yet. Depending on.
No, well, I was not with your mother at that time. In January 2002. So.
Oh, that's splendid. Anyway,
not quite. Anyway, we almost were.
Crikey, that is quite a long time ago. That is.
It's quite a long time ago.
3 years ago.
So obviously we travelled to Portman Road. They are currently 18th in the Premier League. I will find you the Premier League. Here we go. There's the bottom league Premier League table. They're currently 18th. As you can see, it's going to be a bit of a 3-2 between Wolves, Leicester, and Ipswich. Judging by Leicester's performance tonight, it's going to be between Wolves and Ipswich for the last place. I saw a little bit of the Leicester game, and they're still 3-0 down after 70 minutes to Brentford. Let's get, where am I going back to? Yeah, 2 points behind 17th place Wolves. Spurs, on the other hand, have secured back-to-back league victories over Manchester United and Brentford with clean sheets as well. And apparently, this will be the first time we can, if we do win, we've had 3 wins in a row since December 23. And the first time we've had 3 clean sheets in a row since May 22. I think that's what I heard earlier while watching Last Word on Spurs. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. Ipswich team news. Axel Tuanzebe is suspended after his red card at Aston Villa last week for 2 bookable offences. Julio Enciso sustained a knee injury in the previous game. Additionally, Wes Burns, Connor Chaplin, Chidozie Ogbeni, and Christian Walton are sidelined due to various injuries. Midfielders Sammy Morsey and Sammy Schmodix, along with defender Leif Davis, are not firm starters, but I think there is expectation Davis will come back. And on the other hand, has had some good news. Key players such ChatGPT wrote this. I'm not going to lie. Doesn't get everything right. Key players such as Brennan Johnson. No, I'm not having that. Wilson Odebear, Guillermo Vicario, James Maddison, and Destiny. It actually says O'Doggy, not with you with O. O'Doggy have returned from injuries and are expected to feature. Defenders Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven could be available around the international break. Of course, Christian Romero will be available for the international break so he can go and play for Argentina. Richarlison and Dominic Solanke are not far behind in their recovery. Right, I've got to find the where's the.
Can I just say it is really really depressing that when you show the bottom half of the table, Spurs are involved.
Like, oh, absolutely.
We shouldn't be there. Like, okay, Man U are a laughing stock. They're a basket case. Whatever. Who cares? The fact we're there is actually quite sad. The only redeeming thing about that table is that Southampton are bottom of the league.
As someone that goes to Portsmouth University, yes, I understand.
See you in Fratton in 6 months' time.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like Pompey are looking good to stay up as well. So that'll be the police in Hampshire will be panicking next season when they have to deal with those 2 games. Soul Sniper is telling us if Romero declares himself available for Argentina, he should be sold to the highest bidder. I think there's a fair chance he's going in the summer anyway to the highest bidder. I think he'll have 2 years left in his contract. I think for me that's an expectation that he's going to go.
Levy won't make the same mistake he made with Ericsson. I don't think. Well, I mean, we could have sold Ericsson's number before for a lot more money than we ended up getting for him.
Yeah, I mean, also, I heard a stat the other day. I think he's missed some. He's played 120 odd games for Spurs in 3.5 years or 4.5 years, 3.5. When did he sign? 2021. Yeah, so in almost 4 years, but he's missed 75 or something. So he's missed. Quite a lot of games. Maybe it's 108 games he's played.
How many Argentina games has he missed?
Well, yeah, that's the point. Not that many. He obviously missed a lot of games before the World Cup and then played pretty much every game in the World Cup, didn't he? So,
I mean, I don't present the player.
Should Porro, Decky, and Sonny be rested on Sunday? Okay, James, take that question. Go one by one if you want. Take it all individually.
Sonny, yes, absolutely. Look, he looks knackered. He didn't play well last time out. and I'm not going to berate him for that. And there were fans making compilations of how bad he was. I mean, weird people, bizarre people. He looks like he needs a rest, honestly. Becky. Difficult question with Kulu, because a lot of what I've seen about him is he's the kind of player who plays better when he's playing a lot. He's not the kind of person who really needs resting. So I'm going to say no. And Porro, I mean, I don't know. I mean, my personal view on Porro is I think he's our second choice right back. I think Spence is vastly superior to him. But, who plays left back, right? I guess you can play Spence left back and then you play Archie Gray right back. I'm not. Yeah, probably actually. I'm just not a huge Porro fan broadly. I'm not that convinced of him as a fullback. I think he's a wing back, not really a fullback. The only worry I have if you play Gray as a right back is Gray isn't very quick and he's not particularly physical. So while he's quite good positionally, I think you lose a lot of that sort of, recovery ability. But I'm definitely
I have to say, with Gray, I was quite impressed with how he's dealt with the centre back. He's never really been bullied there, which quite surprises me because he doesn't look particularly big, does he? And I think he's done quite well there. I'm just going to remove this off the screen so everyone can see your T-shirt in all its glory, James. If you're
wonderful. Sorry, I was grabbing something from my jacket. It's funny. It's funny. I was
frozen for me. Oh, there you go. He's frozen again for me.
Hello.
There we go. Yeah, hello. So my view is I don't think a doggy should be starting yet. I think we're going to be. I think he'll come off the bench. He didn't get on the pitch today last week, so I think he'll be on the bench. He'll probably get 15, 20 minutes. So you're right. The only real option would be to play Gray there. And Gray did pretty well. If you remember that Manchester City Cup game, he got rinsed a couple of times early on, but he really stuck with it and he grew into that game. It does appear that from Andrew's comments, he's not going to be using midfield anytime soon because of having to cover at the back. So we could well see Archie Gray play full back. And then maybe resting Porro for Manchester City in the week, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Decky has looked tired as well. And I think Madders will obviously start. So it really depends on the blend in midfield. Again, a question for you all in the comments. And it's all interlinked, obviously. Depends who plays in midfield because Decky could play right wing. If you play Decky in midfield, you've got to play Brendan Johnson on the right probably because I don't think Mikey Moore should play on the right. And Odebear may be able to play 60 minutes, but then for me, he should be playing on the left. So should Decky start? Give me a yes, a Y or an N. Yes or no for Decky. Give us that in the comments and we'll see where we get to. I would be inclined to go, if we go for the whole, give me a back four, James. What would you choose for this game? Back four.
Ipswich. Probably Gray, Danzo, Davies, and then Spence.
Okay. And then midfield, I wouldn't disagree with that. It's Gray or Porro, isn't it? That's the answer. Yeah. Milton's giving a yes. Soul Sniper's not on Saturday, yes on Wednesday. Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think if you're going to rest him, it's for City, isn't it, really? I think Djed has to play left back, cover for Davies. I agree with that, Will. I don't think there's any doubt about Djed playing for me. So I'd play Djed.
Djed would be one of the first names I would pick.
I think Djed should be close to the England squad. To be honest, I think it'd be madness if Tuchel doesn't pick him.
It might have been the under-21 squad I saw on Twitter earlier today. Apparently, that fellow who played left back for Arsenal, it might be getting called up.
Do you know what? He's been really good, and so he probably will do. The advantage of Spence is he can cover the whole back four effectively. So, and in World Cup squads, particularly Euro squads, you need someone that can do that, and I think that might get Spence into the reckoning somehow. But I definitely think Tuchel will look at him.
This is the other thing that I find baffling. I don't know what Djed Spence was doing for 2 years, but Conte looked at him, didn't rate him. Ange didn't rate him until he literally had to play him, and then he plays and he's fantastic.
So should we go back? So we go back to the start.
Yeah, sorry.
Conte, straight away, he's a club signing. Didn't like him. Now, obviously, we were told the story about that he flew out. He joined mid pre-season. We were playing Roma in Israel, and the story that we were told by a good friend was that he didn't like his hotel room, and he tried to upgrade and said he would pay himself. And Conte got wind of this and had a massive strop and said, "Go home then. You stay." So, if that story is true, then obviously he's got Conte's back up straight away. And then obviously Conte said he's a club signing and used him for about 5 minutes here and there. Then there was Mason. When did he get loaned out? Was that in the January? Because he went to Rennes. Yes, in the January he went to Rennes. And he actually marked Mbappe out of the game, didn't he, for PSG? I think he got man of the match for Rennes when he was marking him. He then came back. He then went to Genoa.
Yeah. That's where I thought he went.
On loan. Oh, no, sorry. He went to Leeds on loan. They sent him back.
Then he went to
Genoa. He went to... Yeah, Leeds sent him back. Now, Archie Gray played right back quite a lot of the games. I think Spence had injuries, but I do think there were suggestions that Daniel Farker was saying that he thought he had an attitude problem. And then he went to Genoa. Now, Genoa tried to sign him, but they only offered about €6 million, which the club decided wasn't enough. Rightfully sure. So now I was listening to the View from the Lane podcast, the Athletic podcast, and Jay Harrison there was suggesting that Spence is actually quite an introverted character and maybe doesn't know to express himself, which was a surprise because when you've seen like the spat between him and Neil Warnock a few years ago, which again suggested an attitude problem, he seemed like he wasn't an introverted character. He seemed more extroverted. But Jay Harris was trying to suggest that he thought maybe Djed Spence is just misunderstood.
He
played his music too loud in Leeds.
I mean, Neil Warnock's...
Sorry, James, you've got no chance then.
Neil Warnock's one of those people a little bit like Troy Deeney. And I don't know if you ever listened to Troy Deeney. Oh, I had a falling out with this guy. And I had a falling out with this guy. It's like, well, when you have falling outs with about 40 people, maybe you're the reason, right? Not all those other people. Neil Warnock kind of comes across a little bit like that to me. Obviously, he's very much old school English management. And I guess if you're a bit of an introverted, perhaps somewhat sensitive individual, that doesn't really work with you, maybe? Maybe someone just screaming and shouting at you isn't what's going to bring out the best in you. Maybe you need a different approach. And I think, Conte is a bipolar teenager. So,
so hormonal. Seriously. I mean, he almost walked out of Napoli. Everyone goes, he's doing really well at Napoli. He almost walked out of Napoli in August before the season kicked off because they weren't signing the players he wanted.
There are 20-year-old girls right now in nightclubs with borderline personality disorder who are more rational than Conte is. So there you go.
I'm not going there. I think Gray and Lucas are doing wonders for him, keeping a bit more grounded. It's a good possibility there. And certainly it was the interesting thing at Bournemouth when Ange was getting the grief from the fans. Spence was the one that got him. And it was from that moment it seemed to turn. Now, I was on Spurs talk show the other week with Sean Butler and a number of people, and Drew made a really good point saying, if you look at Spence's season, he played in a couple of games, played Coventry. He then got injured for about 4 weeks. And he was actually integrated back into the team slowly. He did come on for about 2 minutes against Man City. I think that was in one of either cup game or the league game. Can't remember which one it was. Didn't play a few more games, but was on the bench. And then eventually, when he was needed, had to come in. And from then he hasn't looked back. And fair play, he's a lot of people saying he's on for being our player of the season, along with Kulusevski. I think it's a bit harsh because Kuli's been so good, but because he's played so many minutes, his form has dipped. But Spence has been a breath of fresh air to us.
Do we think maybe with Spence, he's one of those people who just needs sort of a bit of a support network around him? That's maybe what it comes across as. And maybe he needed a manager who was a bit more of a, shout at you when it's necessary, but put your arm around you when needed. And maybe he just didn't have that before. And maybe if he's got some close friends at the club, maybe that's all he really needed to sort of give him the confidence and sort of help him work a bit harder. Because otherwise, I can't really understand it, I
think Kerry's point here, all the youngsters seem really close, and the whole squad seems very close, and we haven't had any of these rumours. I mean, there was earlier in the season, but I think it was all rubbish, that the players have, not like Ange has lost the players or anything. So it does
No.
seem there's a really close knit. All these Instagram and TikTok stuff the club put out, it does seem like there's good camaraderie there. There you go.
Even
Kerry's giving you 100% there, mate.
yeah, even when we've been at our worst this season, I've not. It doesn't look like the players don't want to give 100% for Ange. Like the one thing I will say in his defense is the players obviously completely buy into everything he does, and they obviously are still playing for him completely. And actually, most recent game when they have a full week of rest, played pretty well. So
Yeah.
there obviously is.
So we've got our back four. Obviously, Vicario, excellent seeing back. Interesting. I saw a tweet in the week and I sent it to Paul Muir, and it was like talking about, does Vicario look a bit more buff? Does he look a bit more hench? And Paul said he wasn't sure, but his better lady had said something as well to him, saying it does look like he's been working out a bit, and maybe he couldn't use his ankle, so maybe he was in the gym pumping iron. But he didn't seem bothered at corners this time. Maybe it's because United didn't press us so much, but they had a big team compared to us. So
well, he's obviously had a bit of time in the gym. He is bigger. He's definitely bigger. I don't know. Maybe he's been sparring with somebody. I don't know. But who knows? Maybe.
Have you ever seen the videos of the keepers training, and Rob Birch, the goalkeeper coach, is holding like one of those rugby tackle bag things up as the corner comes in, but he hardly. It looks so pathetic. It looks you and I could probably catch the ball. It doesn't look like he's like. Surely you want two of them really pushing him to make him to that imagination the players been all around you. But
almost, I think I remember when I was year 10, PE rugby, and we're doing tackles. You almost want someone rugby tackling you while you're trying to catch the ball. Obviously, that won't happen in the game, but it's that kind of force that I think would maybe help you. Because I mean,
you've got to get used to being able to deal with it and punch it away while being pushed over. You have to recreate game situations and to the extremes, if anything. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Yeah. Kerry really wants it to come to it. We all do, Kerry. I think we all, there isn't really this big Ange out climber there was a couple of weeks ago after a couple of wins. We are very up and down as a fan base. Obviously, the focus is very much on the ownership. So, and Soul Sniper is talking about hopefully the excellent young loan players are not forgotten about, especially Divine and Donnelly. I think also Josh Keeley. We are collecting goalkeepers at the moment, Soul Sniper. We've got a lot of very good goalkeepers. And I think Josh Keeley is doing himself no end of good. He's doing himself a world of good. There you go. But interesting, Luca Gunter's currently on loan at Wealdstone. I know that Wealdstone is struggling. I don't know how he's doing personally. If anyone does get to see Wealdstone, that'd be great to get some feedback. But we're increasing. We brought in 3 18-year-olds from Manchester City. We brought in Daniel Batty, who's at number 10. We brought in Luca Furnell, somebody from Liverpool, who's a centre-back. And we brought in the lad from Chelsea, who's also an attacking midfielder. And we've signed a young Irish guy, Mason Melia. But because he's not 18 until September, he can't join us until next January. Because effectively he's a European player. And because of Brexit, we now can't bring in anyone under the age of 18 to play for us. I don't know if that would be with Lamine, like if Lamine Lamane, if we were to sign him, for example, because he's still 17, isn't he? I think. Like, could he not move? Even though he's one of the best players in Europe.
I'm not. Oh, I don't know. It's to do with work permits, and work permits are worked out based on points. It's a really weird system that I don't really understand, if I'm being completely honest.
No, there's definitely something to do with being under 18, because again, this is why Burval couldn't come to us, and the same with Vuskovic can't come to us, because they can both join in when they're 18. So Burval, obviously, the annoying thing is, if the window had shut the same date last year, Burval could have joined us last January or February, because his birthday's like the 2nd of 3rd Feb. 2nd of Feb, I think. Yeah, it was the Sunday, and the window shut on the Monday this year. Yeah. So if it had been this way. So yeah, yes, you are absolutely right. He's not homegrown, and he's not going to be club trained because we've loaned him out. Because
here's the other weird anomaly with the whole homegrown thing. Welsh players, right? They can be considered homegrown by league rules, but not FA rules, which makes zero sense. And I don't know
I
why it
think
isn't
it
just all
used to be the
normalised.
case of UEFA used to see Ben Davies as a non-homegrown player for a few years, and then they changed the rules because even though he was at Swansea playing under the FA, because he was in Wales in a different FA, they counted him as a non-homegrown player for a number of years, which they
So
then
weird.
changed.
And then,
Yeah,
weird.
one of those strange situations. So we've done the back four, midfield. Who's your three in midfield?
Bentancur, Kulu, Matters.
Bentancur, Kulu, Matters. Okay, who's your right winger then? If
Brennan.
Cooley's in midfield.
Probably Brennan.
Brennan.
Brennan for the first half, then I bring Odebear on the second half, probably. Tell then, maybe more on the left. So that's tricky.
Always gone young.
I'd like to give Son a rest for at least half of the match. So maybe you start Son, and then if it's going well at half time, you bring on Mikey Moore. Or maybe you just start Mikey Moore, and then bring Son on at half time, and you just say to Mikey, look, Son's coming on at half time. If you score 2 goals or whatever, then obviously I'll leave you on, take someone else off. But we're going to give you 45 minutes and then see how we're going.
Okay. I personally don't think he'll start Mikey Moore. I think he's going to keep Moore out of it for a little bit. I think he'll get sub appearances enough to prove himself. He might play against Alkmaar, but I think go on.
Has Ange Postecoglou won the Champions League 7 times with Nottingham Forest and Football Manager, though? So levels to this, Levels.
Absolutely. This Football Manager is one of the big bugbears of Ipswich. Have you heard about this?
No.
So obviously, there's no Football Manager 2025, is there? Because they've had development issues.
Yeah.
And poor old Ipswich fans have been waiting 20 odd years to be on Football Manager in the top division and have a bit of a budget. And there is no episode, and they all know there's a good chance they're going down. So they're all quite gutted about this, which I feel sorry for them. But Milton, I'm going to come back to this soon. Okay, I have seen it. I've starred your early one, but I'll star that one. So we will come back to this now. Kerry's sending us Brentford a 4-0 up against a Leicester team that we got 1 point against. Let's not forget this: 1 point in 2 games. Just shocking, Tottenham. Really is shocking.
We should have beaten them when we were away, but yeah.
Ipswich Town beat us in November. I was there. It was awful. Delap basically made Dragusin and Coutinho look like Elfsborg defenders. I'm probably being harsh to the Elfsborg defenders, if I'm honest. Schmodix played on the left and really gave Porro a torrid time. Hutchison, I thought, was excellent on the day. So they played a 3 at the back, or 5. They played a back 5, basically. They got their 2 goals, and we couldn't really break them down. Bentancur got a really good header. But apart from that, I think the only other chance we had in the second half was in about the 93rd minute when there was a bit of a ping pong and it fell for Solanke, and he had 1-on-1 for a very tight angle. If he'd lifted the ball, he probably would have scored. But on the day, he just hit it he tried to hit it low and hard, and Muric managed to save it. But Muric is no longer in the team because they've signed this keeper from West Brom, James, called Palmer. And he was excellent last week by all accounts. Leif Davis normally plays left back, but it looks like Townsend rated very highly against Villa last week in their 1-1 draw. And for me, you've got Delap, who scored 10 goals this season and is looking really, really good. Obviously, Man City graduate from the academy. And obviously, we've seen with Cole Palmer that there's quite a lot of good ones coming out of that academy. Jadon Sancho was there before, and a number of others. I think was Jamie Bino Gittins there as well. Have I made that up? But certainly they've got quite a few come through that academy. Sure. And what was my other point? I had another point here. I forgot what it is. But I'm expecting that sort of 5-4-1. McKenna, for those of you who don't know, was a Spurs trainee and academy player, got injured, actually joined the Spurs coaching team in the academy and then moved to Manchester United. So he's got Spurs in his blood, and apparently has talked quite fondly about Spurs by all accounts. So potentially a Spurs manager in the future, you never know. But how do you see this going? Do you think they're going to keep it quite low block and try and frustrate us and hit us on the counter, James?
Yeah, I would suspect so. That's what I'd do anyway. I mean, we do struggle against deep blocks, hence why I'd probably play Cooley and Madders in the midfield together. Just for that sort of double 8 creativity that those two can provide. And the other thing is, obviously, they can be quite physical at times, and we do a little bit struggle with that. But we have definitely kicked on since when we last played them. You know, we've had players back. I think particularly the young lads in the squad, everyone's sort of gelled together mentally and sort of emotionally. And I feel like we are much stronger than we were then. We've sort of gone through this hard time of being punched repeatedly, and then we've stood back up and we suddenly feel like we can throw a punch back almost. That's what it feels like. So look, it's not going to be easy. It's probably going to be a really awful game to watch. It's probably going to be us passing the ball around, having like 70% of the possession, not creating anything, and we're going to be whinging to each other on a group chat going, oh, we're not creating anything. It's stagnant and lifeless. And then we're probably going to score out of nowhere. And then they'll have to try and attack, and then we'll score another. And, you know, at the end of the game, I'm just going to go, oh, nice win. Good result,
that. The game in November, James Maddison was on the bench, and even though we were playing appallingly badly and needed a goal, he didn't get brought off the bench till the 85th minute. I didn't expect him to start against Manchester United because traditionally, when he's been injured, he comes back slowly. It isn't very good. Now, maybe it was only because it was only a few weeks. It wasn't like a 3-month layoff like last season. But he was very impressive, partially down to the fact that United have no midfield. Their system doesn't work with the players they've already got. But I was very impressed with it. I suspect he'll score tomorrow. He is our top scorer in the Premier League, isn't he? I think. I do think it. I think he'll score. I think Ange will go with Bentancur, Maddison, and Burval again. The front three is into, and obviously it's going to be Tell up front. I think. Yeah. Don't know whether you might be right. He might pick Johnson, but against a team that sits deep, Johnson's not the answer. Johnson's the answer when we're attacking.
You're right. I'd start Bergvall and Kulu out wide. Actually, I've had a more of a think. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Bergvall. And I think he probably will play Son, but Odegaard might get half an hour, 20 minutes, maybe.
Do you think? So a lot of Ange's decisions this season have seemed a bit bizarre, benching Maddison at certain points. Do you think he has, in his team selection, prioritized the mentality and sort of the mental welfare of the players above tactical sort of decisions?
I think a lot of games he's had no choice. But, I mean, okay, to answer your question, Timo Werner playing up front against Tamworth ahead of Will Lancashire that to me says, I'm really hoping Timo scores a goal here and gets some confidence. A more effective answer against non-league central defenders would have been played Will Lancashire, in my opinion. I think that was an odd decision before the game, and I think all of us after the game thought it. And I don't think apparently Timo's back in training. I've heard today, but I don't think we're going to see much. Obviously, he's not in the Europa League squad. Odegaard's been put back in there, so yeah. This is the form guide. As you can see, quite a lot of L's, red L's in that graphic, but a really good result for Ipswich at Villa on the back of some real poor results. Again, apart from Southampton, the rest are very good teams. So the Southampton loss at home was a bit of a shock for them, especially given where Southampton have been. But 2 wins for us. If we forget the 2 cup games, positive signs. And I'm just hoping we can get a win. I'm just going to go back to this graphic again. The only win we've had at Portman Road in the Premier League era, and even before that, I think before 92, we hadn't played them since about 85, 86, because they were out of the top division for a few years. The very bottom one there, Spurs lost the first. We'd been hammered 5-0 at Leeds. Eric Cantona scored a hat-trick in the midweek. And we went to Ipswich, and Teddy Sheringham was signed. He'd already scored the first live Premier League goal for Nottingham Forest, live Sky goal on the Sunday. We got battered by Leeds 5-0, and we signed him and he made his debut. It was a really windy day, and Jason Cundy, who is him of TalkSport, massive Chelsea fan, that was a centre back we'd signed about a year earlier, scored one of the most bizarre goals He went flying in for a tackle about 50 yards from goal, and it flew into the top corner of the net because the wind carried it. It's the only good thing Jason Cunny ever did for Spurs, because he was terrible. And he was also the first person to block me on Twitter because I told him he wasn't a very good player for Spurs. The second season, we just signed one of Ipswich's best players, Jason Dazelle, and he happened to score the last minute equaliser for us in that 2-2 draw. And then the 94 was the fourth game of the season, and Jurgen Klinsmann had recently joined Spurs, and he scored twice. And Ili Dimitrescu, also another World Cup star from USA 94, scored once. And by all accounts, that first half we could have scored 6 or 7. But that's the last time we won at Portman Road, because the next 2 games are terrible. 3-0. It showed Spurs at that time we were just awful. Basically, from about 96 to 2004, we were pretty rubbish.
I have been told it's like the 90s again this season by Gibbo in particular. He says this is what the 90s were like, and HG. So that's
I did think last Sunday's result, the game, was the most 90s game I remember, because we did used to win the odd game 1-0. There was quite a lot of goals by Andy Sinton, Alan Nielsen, maybe Raul Fox, or Chris Armstrong particularly, 1-0. And that it had that vibe for me, has to be said. 2 very poor teams. I know both teams had injury problems, but it sort of game we had to get a win in just to get our season up and running. Head to head. So 5 wins for Ipswich, 3 for Spurs. So we're definitely losing the Ipswich Spurs battle. So it's about time we got back on this. What else have I got? Oh, here's the league table, yeah. While James has disappeared. So as you can see, it's quite tight, isn't it? You know, between 1 point between us and United, and even 3 points between us in 12th and West Ham in 16th. So there could be a lot of up and down. Brentford will obviously be on 37 now. Obviously, I did this earlier today before they're smashed Leicester. Realistic, James, 13 games left. How many points do you think? Bear in mind we've got Europa League Thursday games as well. How many points do you think we can get? We will get.
Just get 10. We need 10 points. That's where I'm at mentally. We need 10 points, and then we're all good. In reality, we should be looking at like maybe 25, 26, that sort of number. You know, there is a weird feeling around the club at the moment, because we have been pretty terrible this season, but there is also this kind of weird feeling I'm getting that everything's starting to come together, especially with the youth players, and especially with sort of the mood around the players and the team. There isn't this weird sort of anger and infighting. Everyone sort of seems to be on the same wavelength, and they all want to work together. So I can see, especially now we're at the domestic cups, sort of a run of good results. But just get 10 points, get to 40 points. I don't care. Europa League's what matters. Just get 10 points. Don't get relegated. Or, if we do get relegated, we'll probably win the championship.
We're not getting relegated. We're not.
Just don't get relegated. It doesn't. We're not going to get in a European spot aside from winning the Europa League. So ultimately, a lot of these league games are just free hits. So
each Premier. Oh, hello. Look, I've got a very wet cat just joined me. There she is. Here, Layla. You go in there. There you go. There's your bed. Each Premier League space is worth about 3.5 million in prize money. So when you think about it that way, you go, actually, that's quite a lot of money. So Fulham are currently in 8th in 39, Newcastle 7th in 41, Chelsea 6th, 43. That, I think 43 is too far for us to catch now, 13 points. 8th is not out of the realms, but we'd have to probably win 10 of those 13 games. And there's a possibility, if results go the right way and stuff, and the right teams win the competitions. So if we didn't win Europa, Manchester United did or whatever, you could end up with quite a lot of teams. It's looking pretty much odds on that England are going to get the 5th Champions League spot. Typically, the season we're not going to finish 5th, having finished 5th last season. And Chelsea are probably going to win the Conference League.
Yeah. Would that mean that additional places in the league would get European spots?
Possibly. Or... Also, you've got the Carabao Cup. If Liverpool win that extra space will go to the league rather than to who are they playing? I've forgotten even who they're playing. Newcastle. So
Jordan.
Newcastle.
Jordan.
So wherever Newcastle finishes, we'll only qualify through the league. And then the FA Cup, the same thing. If one of the teams that are in the Champions League spaces wins the FA Cup, that space will go to the league, is my understanding. Okay. But yeah, you could end up with us or Manchester United finishing way outside and winning and getting in the Champions League, plus the 5 spaces. So you could end up with 6 teams in the Champions League next season, quite easily. If Chelsea had a fall from grace and won the Conference League, they'll be in the Europa League. It's unlikely they're going to fall that far.
You'd end up with like 8 or 9 British English teams in Europe.
Yeah, you could do.
Yeah, crazy.
If everything fell the right way, basically. Milton's asking how much for a season ticket. I mean, I haven't got a season ticket, but I think it's
your left or right kidney.
I mean, basically, you're talking over £1,000, Milton, up to
3 or 4.
It depends. The 1882 ones, which means you get a drink and a program, a private bar at half time or something like that, is about 2,100, I think. But you can also get hospitality ones that are in the thousands of pounds.
I mean,
if like Steve Diver in the Tummel Club, that's about 15 grand a year, I think, and you have to have 2 of them. Plus, there's a membership. Yeah, which is why he doesn't want to give it up. If you leave, there's also a waiting list. If you leave, you have to pay the joining fee again. So they've really got them by the.
I was having a conversation with somebody a couple of days ago in a video game, and I was complaining about the game, but I just said, "Oh yeah, it's my fault. I should have spent $3,000 on a computer." And he was like, "You could have the money." I'm like, "How?" He's like, "You still got both your kidneys, don't you? You still got your startup capital. You could sell one of your kidneys. So if you want a Spurs season ticket, sell one of your kidneys. There you go. That's about how much it costs."
Yeah, let's not encourage that, shall we say? Just to warn you, now I've got a cat in here. The dog's clearly out in the garden, has just started barking. He probably knows there's a cat in here, so he'll probably poke his head through the cat flap.
Are you not going to dry your cat off with a towel?
She's up there. She's up there. She's got a blanket and all sorts. She'll clean herself. She's looking more cautious. She's more worried that she had the dog barking. So he's obviously going out for his nighttime wee. Soul Sniper's telling us these next 2 games are winnable. Table will look different. Absolutely. 2 or 3 good results, especially our next 4: Ipswich, Man City, Bournemouth, and Fulham are having a really good season. Both of them. Chelsea, I don't hold much hope for that. Southampton, we should win that. Wolves are fighting for their lives, and again that'll be after one of the European games, hopefully. Forest having a great season. Liverpool will have a Champions League semi-final probably that week to concentrate. So hopefully they'll be concentrating on that, and they'll be clear of the league, hopefully. But I don't hold much hope for that. If we can get,
we'll get 3 points.
If we get 50 points from where we're at now, I think we've done well. It won't be
Brighton.
Great,
Brighton's winnable. Villa away tricky. West Ham aren't very good. Liverpool probably lose. Forest winnable. Wolves very winnable. Southampton are terrible. Chelsea tricky game. Stamford Bridge. Fulham winnable. Bournemouth we should win. City get a result typically, and Ipswich. I mean, you're looking at sort of 9 points or so that we should definitely get. Then you're looking at a lot of games that could go either way. So, a lot of 50-50s. I mean, Palace, yeah, they're a good side, but they're not great, are they? We should, player for player, we should beat them. Villa, I think, very much have run out of steam. They don't have a particularly deep squad. They're playing in Champions League.
If Villa get to the cup final, that game gets moved.
Yes. Also,
and if it gets moved to the midweek, there's a good chance it gets moved to the midweek before the cup final.
They have,
in which case their heads will be on other things.
They have Club Brugge in the Champions League, which
they do have
they'll probably get through. So I don't know how them progressing in the Champions League will affect their league status.
I didn't upload. Have I got it here? I have got it here. No, I haven't. I thought.
But then Club Brugge knocked out. I can't remember who they knocked out, but they knocked out someone semi-decent. So
they did indeed. That was quite a surprise result. Club Brugge going to Atalanta.
Yeah, that's who they knocked out. Yeah.
Champions League draw. Just give me a second. I've got to remember. They're, obviously, all 3 English teams are in the same half of the draw. Interestingly, so they're going to get. Villa will play the winner of PSG Liverpool. So highly likely it's going to be Liverpool going through from there. So Villa will be out by the quarterfinals. Chelsea. in free fall. Forest drop points soon. Look at their fixtures. Yeah, I mean, there's only so long you can keep going. Forest obviously haven't had these extra games, the same as Bournemouth and Fulham haven't had the extra games that we've had to deal with. You look at Newcastle last season, had huge injuries when in the Champions League. Manchester United are now having these problems. It's not just a Spurs thing, but we've had it worse in many ways. But yeah, Chelsea are not having a great run of form, so hopefully this will work in our favour. So yeah, James. I'll tell you what we haven't discussed. I'm going to give my team first of all. Sorry. So I think Bergval, Bentancur, and Madders will be in midfield. I think it will be Son, Tell, and Kulusevski. Unless he thinks Johnson's fit enough to start, but I think Johnson should be coming off the bench. Hopefully, we'll be 2 or 3 goals up. Johnson come off, and Odebear can come on off the bench and stretch them. That's my hope. Maybe with Scarlett as well. Get some players off, rest them for Wednesday. I thought we'd win in November, and we were terrible. But I just see us getting revenge in this game. You know, the important thing is we need to score early or score first. Yeah. We don't let them get the goal and then just park the bus. But I tell you what they did do in November, and I've seen it a couple of times since. They were very good with their corners. And really early on, they played a near post corner because we've been having problems with that because they obviously pack players around Vicario. And then the second corner was a far post one. And one of the big centre-backs stood unmarked at the far post and headed it against the bar. And I've seen that 2 or 3 times since when I've seen Ipswich play. So it'd be really interesting to see if we're switched on to that this time because we really do need to be. Especially we've got Ben Davies at centre-back who's, he's decent in the air, but he's not the best in the air. And not taking anything away from Ben because, we've been big supporters of Ben Davies. And I think he's really turned around a lot of fans' views on him this season because saying, he can't play. I think he's been really good when he's played.
The Welsh Maldini.
Welsh Maldini, indeed. I think we really need to go back to this start. Milton's question. Now, Milton, I had to Google this because I had no idea of this rumour. There is a rumour going around the internet that Sonny's going to get a £50 million or dollar contract. I don't think we've actually invoked his extension yet, have we? He's got a 1 year. Yeah, he had 2. He had a +1 last year, and then we got another +1 we can invoke. Maybe we have done it already. But it's a tough one. Yang's obviously looking good at QPR. Early days, obviously. The new Son. There's always been concern that we're going to keep hold of him purely for commercial reasons. What are you saying, James?
Equally with Sonny going to Saudi, he might not want to go to Saudi Arabia. I mean, Richarlison didn't want to go. Doesn't want to go. Fair enough. I mean, okay, it's a lot of money, but I presume Son has made plenty of money by now. So he just might not want to go live in Saudi Arabia. That's entirely possible. He might quite like being at Spurs and he might like living in London. So, me.
I imagine that Son's sponsorship deals in Korea are as big as his sponsorship deals in Europe. Yeah, because he is like David Beckham in Korea. He's that big. So
he's not shopping at Lidl,
No, I don't think he is. I honestly think we'll finish the year where we started this last season. Hopefully, Milton, you're right. If we was to suddenly lose to Alkmaar, then that's more likely in many ways. I think you get to the point of the season, and most teams that have gone a long way in Europe generally have to balance it up. West Ham definitely wrote off their league season when they won the Conference League. It's really difficult because we're not going to get top 4. We know that, so we do really need to. Put all eggs in the Europa League basket. But obviously, if we don't win it, then it's a bit of a disaster. It's a real balancing act. But obviously, looking at next season.
I mean, I think the thing is we're so far off the European spots in the league that it's a case of, obviously when Klopp first took over at Liverpool, they went full in on the Europa League. They finished 8th and then they lost in the final to Sevilla 3-2 or whatever it was. But we're kind of in a position where, league-wise, even if we went full in on the league, even if we won every single one of our remaining league games, we probably wouldn't get a European spot through the league. So at that point, you just kind of go, let's have a European adventure. And if we win, then, we'll have won 4 times as many European trophies as Arsenal have. So there you go.
Kerry's saying she thinks we should keep Sonny. I mean, again, Ange, at the beginning of the season, we had to manage Sonny's minutes, and that hasn't happened because he's had no choice. Because we lost Odegaard early, then we lost Werner. Mikey Moore obviously was ill for quite a long time, so it's just been unfortunate, really. And
Also,
I do think the squad wasn't deep enough for the season we were about to go into, and the club really got that wrong.
he's not. I feel like he's probably not particularly suited to what he's being asked to do. Son is not a touchline winger. He never was, right? And he's not that quick anymore because he is getting on a bit in age. And ultimately, what he's always been really good at was cutting inside on his right foot. Every famous goal of Son's, City Champions League quarterfinal, he's cutting inside, whipping it in. He's not playing in that position anymore. And it's kind of one of my frustrations with Ange of, hey, maybe don't ask the guy to do something he's not very good at, obviously. But yeah, his minutes certainly could have been managed better. Odegaard being out for like half the season obviously couldn't have been foreseen necessarily. And Mikey Moore being ill, who knows what he had, polio maybe, who knows. Also couldn't have been foreseen.
It was glandular fever.
Glandular fever. Yeah. Who knows? Anyway, it's certainly been unforeseen, the situation we've had. So his minutes haven't been managed properly, but ultimately, yes, he's not as quick as he used to be, but he still has the ability to change games. And I think actually, maybe you just sort of have to work players around him. A little bit like Ronaldo towards the end of his time at Real Madrid. Zidane worked players around what Ronaldo could and would do.
I mean, Ronaldo was a level up, obviously, and an ego up.
Yeah. And obviously he was a bit older by then. But sometimes with a player like Sonny, who's obviously still world class, but regressing in certain areas, you have to kind of work players around them and systems around them a little bit.
I think there's a couple of things. Number one, he's lost Harry Kane, who used to find him at all costs. Number two, I think his best position is playing as the second striker. And if Ange played a different system, so say he played a 5-3-2 or something, he could play that role with Solanke. I think he isn't a number 9, but with somebody who can find passes for him and put him in on the shoulder of the defender. You're right. He's not a wide player. He can do a job out there. I find it strange he never plays on the wide right because he can cut in on his left foot. The number of goals he scored curling left-footed shots, especially against Leicester over the years, he scored a number of goals like that. But I do think the same way Brendan Johnson is not a winger. He's more of a second striker. And I was listening to the Spurs show today with John Pratt, former Spurs player from the 70s, and he was saying, I've never seen Brendan Johnson push the ball past the defender, even though he's supposed to be rapid. And again, it's because it's not his game. He doesn't really know how to do it, which a £49 million player, it's not his fault. It's what we paid.
Typically, in regards to Brendan Johnson, typically when he plays for Wales, he plays as a striker.
Yeah. Sometimes he plays it as a wide right in the 4-3-3, though, doesn't he? But quite advanced at times.
Basically, he plays the Dele Alli role, more or less.
Right, okay. Keith, I've got a friend who it took her years to get over it. So it can really, really wipe you out. Obviously, Mikey Moore being a professional sportsman has always got that head start on recovery from just Joe Average. Not saying you're Joe Average, though, Keith. Keith Average, no? Oh, no, I'll stop talking. Sonny's not a dribbling winger, never was. I mean, he could dribble past players, but you're right. That's not really his game. And
he always was trying to get in.
Odegaard was supposed to be that player, but he's been injured. So we'll see when Odegaard comes back now. But we are lacking in the wing. We don't have the right wingers for the system, in my opinion. The signing of Johnson is still a bit of an odd one. Werner was a stopgap. Re-signing him was baffling for me.
But I mean, is Timo Werner even a football player? Like, genuinely, sometimes I wonder.
He's a football player lacking confidence. He just has no confidence.
He's been lacking confidence for about 5 years now. He scored 24 goals. He scored 24 goals one season at RB Leipzig when he was like 22. Yeah. I don't know who he scored those goals against, but he did. Brendan Johnson.
They were all very similar. They were very much put through, high line, races through, hits it first time goal.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say, kind to Timo Werner, is he's very good looking. So, modelling career opportunity. There you go. Thing is, we don't really have any wingers. I mean, Odegaard, yes, young, been injured. Brennan, he's not a winger. Son, isn't really a winger. He wants to cut inside. You know, they're very much inside forwards. They want to play off a main central striker. And then the thing that really winds him up with Ange is he inverts his fullbacks when we don't have any natural wide players.
Yes. This is the problem here. And it's interesting because Spence has been going outside, and Porro did it a couple of times the other day. I don't think with our wingers we can invert our fullbacks. They need to be going on the outside, or one of the midfielders need to be doing it, which is a bit.
I mean, if you play Kulu centrally, maybe Kulu can get out wide. But what I don't quite understand is, if I can recognise this, and just paid a lot of money to manage a football club, does he not see this, or does he simply think that making everyone understand the system is more important than tactically being superior to the players' needs?
I think Ange is the long game that we don't necessarily see. Now, it would appear the club is happy to stick with that long game because he's still in a job when everyone was saying he should have been sacked. So, yeah, that's the real. Is how long is this going to stay for, and what players will we get in the summer? And we're not going to go into that today. Maybe that would do that in the international break. I'm going to just touch on this win. Tyler Dibbling at Southampton, good player. We were linked with him for 50 million in January with a loan back. I think he's injured at the moment. Firstly, those of a certain age that know Red Dwarf, I keep thinking of Dwayne Dibley every time, and you'll know what I mean. But he looks like a really good player, very similar to the Cole Palmer type. And I can see him going this summer because Southampton are clearly going to get relegated, and they'll probably cash in. I don't know. Is he the right fit for our system at the moment? I tell you, he might be a better fit. Is for Manchester United because they don't need wingers. They need inverted tens probably for that for Amarin's football because the ones they've got don't work.
I suspect Son will be here for another season after this one. Yep. After that, who knows? But you look at Brennan. I mean, presumably Ant wants to persist with him. He's very much a central player. Kulu, again, he can play out wide, but really he's an 8, isn't he? You know, he's a little bit like Eric Lamela in a lot of ways without the injuries. And he's a lot better at football. I think we just need wingers. We don't need players who are good cutting inside. We have players like that. Almost, stuff is going to sound, we need Aaron Lennon. Someone like that. Someone who just quick,
someone
takes his man on, goes for it.
Do you know what? There's a couple of players that we've had in recent years. I was discussing with someone the other day. Lucas Moura would have done really well in Ange Ball. Although he tended to come in field, he did like to attack the far post. Bergwijn would have done well in Ange Ball.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he played a lot of games under Mourinho where he basically had to carry the ball 50 yards because we were so deep all the time. I just want to touch in on Stephen Delaney's point here. I think you're right. I have said a number of times, I wanted Højbjerg to go, and he's apparently doing very well in France, but we didn't replace his experience. We replaced him with Berval, and we replaced the Celso with Gray, or vice versa. We got rid of all these experienced players and replaced them with youngsters, which is great for 27, 28, or 28, 29, but we need guys that can game manage, and it feels like Basuma and Bentancur do it in small amounts. They don't do it enough. For me, I mean, I think they've both got a year left in their contracts in the summer. They both might need to go, or one of them probably does, probably Basuma needs to go. So we need a 6, whether Ange wants to call him a 6 or whatever. We need a midfielder who can control the game. Now, there's not a lot of them around, but that's what we need. Archie Gray might be that player. I don't think he's going to be there yet. We haven't even seen him play there yet.
No.
We need an experienced game management player in midfield to play alongside Bergwijn, Madders, Kulusevski, whoever. We definitely need 2 wingers for me who can take players on. Now, Odebear hopefully will take up some of the mantle. But I think, Stephen, you're right. We've got to keep some experienced players like Son and Ben Davis around. I think there's a good chance they'll both get their extensions activated. Good word. Thank you. And then we'll see where we go.
I mean,
and just Soul Sniper saying if no European football, okay. If we're not in Europe next season, is Ange still the manager on the 1st of September, James?
I mean, if you've shown him all this confidence through all of this period of time, right? All those horrible defeats. Daniel Levy, he may be bald, but he's not daft. Like, he knows what the outcome of all that is, right? You know, it's not a European place. So, I mean, if you're showing all this patience this season, it's a bit like putting a dish together with loads of chilies, then taking it out of the oven, having a bite and going, wow, that's really spicy. Like, no, of course it is. I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, Levy's obviously seemed to have decided that he doesn't want the same approach he took with Mourinho, Antonio Conte, Pochettino as well. He obviously wants to give somebody patience. And I think that the fact that players are playing for him and there's this general sort of team spirit, he's obviously willing to give it time. Yeah, I agree. Graham Bedfell. If the idea is long term, we're going to sign lots of young players. We're going to give this manager time. And unless he loses the players, we're going to keep faith with him, sort of thing. And, we got to a cup semi-final beating, Man United, Manchester City. So, we didn't do terribly in the cup. Okay, we went out early in the FA Cup. But if we have a good run in Europe, you can say, well, okay, he's had a terrible hand dealt to him through injuries, all these other things, and he's bled in a lot of youth. Give him another season? I mean, I don't really see what the point was in keeping him beyond sort of December if you're not going to give him another season, personally.
I'd say the only reason would be... Oh, there's the cat. She's going for a little bit. The only reason would be maybe the availability of replacements. If they thought they might want to get someone who wouldn't move to the summer or something like that, or ownership changing, maybe don't want to be changing the coach until that's sorted out. All these rumors going around about Qatar and Amanda Staveley signing an NDA and all these different things, which time will rumble on, no doubt, and hopefully something will happen.
Let's say we get to the Europa League semi-finals and we lose to Lazio, hypothetically, right? And we finish, I don't know, like 10th, 11th, something like that, 9th, right? And okay, ownership sorted out. Enoch, Levy, staying. There are a few people kicking about. Do you maybe look at that and go, well, all these young players have sort of had opportunities. We had a borderline unprecedented injury crisis. And go, well, he's managed all that pretty well while bleeding in a lot of young players. Maybe you just give him another season and say to him, look, we're going to give you this summer and this season. If it's going really badly again, then we might let you go, but otherwise we're just going to give you this. That's almost what I can see the conversation being, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. I'll tell you what we haven't done. Score predictions. Get your score predictions for Ipswich v Spurs in the chat, please. James, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Tottenham Hotspur. What do you think?
A scrappy 3-0. As in, like, we'll score all 3 in the last 20 minutes or so. And the first 60, 70 minutes will be awful. But then the last 20 minutes will be really good. We'll get a goal from...
Terry's agreeing, mate. Yeah. She's agreeing.
Yeah. We'll get some scrappy goals in. But
come on, get your comments in. Give me your scores. Keith is going for a 2-2 Desmond. Will is going for a 2-0 win to Spurs. I hope that's a 2-0 win for Spurs because we're away. I'm assuming that. Thank you, Will. And if you're watching this on catch up, please put your predictions, who you think is going to play in the comments. Give us a like as well, please. It all helps the old algorithm. I will try to respond to anything tomorrow after I've done parkrun. I know lots of Aussies watch this overnight, and I tell you what, James, I did a show with Brad Matthews. I think it was the Nottingham Forest preview around Christmas time. We had about 12 people watching us, and I sort of forgot about the show afterwards. And about a week later, I looked and we'd had over 2,000 views, and there was loads of comments from Nottingham Forest fans. It was brilliant. So I think one of us upset them anyway by saying something.
I upset. I remember doing the Tamworth show, and someone asked me a question about their manager, and I said, "Well, I've never heard of him, so he can't be that good, can he?" And then someone got really, really upset with me.
I did see that,
saying, "Oh, you don't know real football." And it's like, okay, buddy. Okay, great, buddy.
3-1 to the mighty Spurs, even though we got a terrible record there. Danso wants to defend properly. Maybe Danso and Davis will score from set pieces for us. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? Bakara's looking really good. Kinski is good competition for him. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Milton down under is giving us a 2-0 win to Spurs. If there's any Ipswich fans, you tell us if we're wrong. You comment after the show. Let us know what you think. Thank you very much, guys.
I hope I hope Ipswich stay up. Actually, I like Ipswich. I mean, obviously, of the recently promoted teams, I mean, I want Southampton relegated. Obviously, I was sad when they got promoted, but I like Ipswich. You know, it's nice. It's a bit like Luton when they went up from League One Championship straight to the Premier League. It's nice to see teams that can do that. I don't hate Ipswich. Wolves, I mean, they've done skivy things with. So, okay, unrelated note. You know, certain Premier League teams will have betting sponsorships of companies you've never heard of.
Yeah, they're known as white. Are they white betting companies or something?
Yes.
I was hearing
So,
Kieran Maguire talk about it.
do you know why they do that? Because you can't legally advertise gambling in China. But a lot of Chinese people watch the Premier League. So these are Chinese companies paying to sponsor the Premier League or Premier League teams so that people in China watching it will see that. So then they go gamble, even though you can only gamble legally in China in like certain places, but it's basically to appeal to Chinese consumers. So it's a bit skivy and a bit dodgy, but yeah, that's why.
Okay, interesting. There you go. James's little bit of
educational
education on the gambling world in the Far East. Maddison and Spence. Maybe Spence is going to cut in off and put one in the bottom corner, I reckon. Maddison with maybe another tap in or a little Kulu cross, which he'll get on the far post and knock it in. That'd be
Djed
nice.
Spence 30-yard screamer.
This is a good question. This is a good point, actually. You know, Danso, I would, looks very strong, comfortable. He did take a knock last week. You know, he's not brilliant at the ball, but I don't feel like when his Dragonson's got the ball, I think he's going to give the ball away. I don't feel that with Danso at the moment. And I think he can keep up with him. Ben Davis has done pretty well generally against strikers so far. But if I'm Delap, I'm going to be trying to attack Davis most of the time. I'm going to go on that far post and attack Porro as well, not necessarily Spence.
A lot of what I've read about Davies is he's very intelligent football-wise. He's a little bit like Philip Lahm, right? He's not that quick. He's not that strong. He's 6 foot, apparently, allegedly, as what his Tinder profile says. He's probably like 5'10", 5'11", but whatever.
Did you say his Tinder profile?
Yeah, I was making a joke about men who are under 6 foot saying they're 6 foot. That was the joke.
Right, okay.
Yeah. But obviously he's a very intelligent football player.
He is an intelligent footballer.
And the other thing
he reads the game well.
He always puts his body on the line, like especially for Wales, right? Which, to be honest, I pay more attention to him when I'm watching Wales. You know, he does put his entire body on the line. So even though he's perhaps a little weaker than Danso, he's certainly not a player who lies down, as it were. So yeah, you can attack him, but he's not going to give up. So, which is probably, I think, quite a good trait in him as a defender because he's very persistent.
Okay. Stephen, I don't know if you listened to that Spurs show with John Pratt, but he talked about this game. I was listening to this while walking the dog today. So, yeah, give it a little listen. I mean, we've heard the story many times before that basically him and Alan Ball pre-game got together, and John Pratt didn't realise that if they got a point, both teams would go up. He hadn't clocked this, and it meant that Brighton couldn't go up. And in the first 5 minutes, apparently there was a young Southampton lad who hit the post and maybe the bar. And John Pratt said to Alan Ball, "Does he know the deal we've got?" And I think after that, it all calmed down. But John Pratt was told by Keith Birkinshaw not to go across the halfway line. And apparently it was one of the worst 0-0 draws ever because both teams just sat back and just didn't attack, trying to score. So that it was, both teams went up and Brighton didn't. So there you go. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Please give us a like and a subscribe. Give us a comment, like I say, afterwards. Gibbo and Davo will be back at 7 p.m. UK time on Tuesday. Because earlier time, I think, to help with Davo's work, and Gibbo's knackered by 9. He's ready for his bedtime. And got special guests that I've arranged today for a proper grumpy old Spurs, which should be good again. And I don't know whether we're going to get anything after the Man City game. I'll be working Wednesday night. So whether we get something Thursday or whether we just wait for Friday show next week. Hopefully Cole will be back. He's currently entertaining a group of guys in the man cave, which is why he was unavailable tonight. And I guess HG probably was watching the Brentford game. So it might be me and James back next week. You never know. But thanks for watching. Like I say, give us a like, subscribe. And I've got hope that the outro works this time and we don't keep chatting live for all of you to watch. But if we do, we'll be polite. So come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you